Otherwise, it's your show.
Okay, fine. Okay, so we're going to start walking right now. This is a new thing we're doing. Walking with my friend Avi, former across-the-street neighbor. He was my across-the-street neighbor, but then he helped me buy a house. So I moved Baruch Hashem, I moved a few blocks away. So let's tell everybody how this started. Simchas Torah. We were at Chabad of the Five Towns.
Yeah.
And I said that we were dancing together. And I noticed you lost a lot of weight. You look great. And I said, do you feel as good as you look? You said, yeah, you feel good. Baruch Hashem. And you said, let's start walking together.
Yeah.
Simchas Torah is a good time for achlotas, for making good resolutions. So I said, let's start. So this is our first walk.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Hashem, first of many.
First of many. God
we want people to join him. Yetz Hashem.
Yeah, it's a Hakel thing. This is the Hakel year, the 7th year, where we gather. So maybe it'll become a whole big, like the Boston Marathon.
It would be beautiful. It would be awesome.
So, and the premise here is this is like a moving Farbrengen.
That's right, a walking Farbrengen.
And I see you brought your bottle there.
I have here. I try to.
It's not mashke, right? What
no,
is it?
No. It's protein. It's vegan protein.
Vegan protein.
With a hechsher, they have really good quality stuff out there. I try to increase my protein intake because I exercise a lot and I lift weights, and part of my diet is focusing on quality protein intake. And people don't really understand how much protein you really need.
You need a lot of protein.
You need a lot, and it's very
probably
difficult.
less carbs than you think you need, and more protein.
Much more protein, and it's very difficult to get it from food sources. And supplements help. So I have a protein shake here that I drink once a day to help me increase my protein intake.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, by the way, you're going to hear noises in the background because we're walking down Central Avenue. And I think the route that we figured out was a mile walk. That's the premise. That we're going to walk to Cedarhurst Park, around the park. We're going to make a lap around the park and then come back where we started. And that should just be a drop over a mile.
Yes, Hashem.
And you're taking it easy on me. I said nothing crazy. No 26-mile marathon.
I can't do a 26-mile marathon, so don't worry.
Okay. So maybe by the time, we do this a few more times, who knows? Okay, so to start off our mobile Farbrengen here, you told me something. I don't know if you're willing to share it, but you shared with me a memory on Simchas Torah when we're dancing around.
Remind me.
Yeah, we were probably not dancing hard enough if we were able to converse that much, but you were telling me about the shul.
Oh.
Yeah, on Neptune Avenue.
Yeah,
and it was really beautiful.
Yeah.
What you told, but set it all up, set up the contrast about.
So when my younger brother and I were kids, we used to go to my maternal grandparents for the second days for Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah. And my grandfather, Alav Hashalom, my grandparents on both sides, maternal and paternal, were Holocaust survivors. My great-grandparents, Nebuch, did not survive. And we used to go Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah to my mother's parents. They lived in
Your
Brighton
mother's
Beach.
Parents were from the same place your father? I know your father's parents are Carpathian.
My father's side is Carpathian. My mother's side is from Poland. My mother was born in Krakow. So my grandparents, my mother's parents lived in Brighton Beach. And my grandfather, Alav Hashalom, davened in a little shtibel off of Ocean Parkway, on Neptune Avenue, on the intersection of Ocean and Neptune. There was a big Orthodox shul on the corner of Ocean Parkway and Neptune Avenue, which still might be standing today. It still might be functional, I don't know. But I inherited from my grandfather that we like little shtiblach. We're not into the big shuls. And down the block was a little shtibel on Neptune Avenue, a block off of Ocean. And it was all Holocaust survivors. Even the Rav was a Holocaust survivor. I think today it's a condominium. I think a developer bought it and knocked it down and built an apartment building. But back in those days, 30, 40 years ago...
This was back in the 80s.
This was in the 80s. Yeah. Correct. By the 90s already, I was 15 in the 1990s, so that we stopped going at that point. This was in the 80s. It was a Holocaust survivor shul, and you felt it. It was a depressing place, to be totally honest with you, that my brother and I didn't particularly love to go to. Even the seats, the tables were hardwood, the benches were hardwood. It hurt to sit. It was the kind of a place where it was more comfortable to stand than to sit on those hard benches. Shemini Atzeres night, and in those days I didn't know anything about Chabad. I was a kid. I didn't know anything. I just knew that these young guys would come and dance with us.
They just suddenly appear.
I didn't suddenly.
You didn't know why they were
there. Any other time that we would go there, I would go periodically to my grandparents. I would go to shul with my Zaidi for Shachris during the week on a Shabbos. Whatever. They were never there, but this holiday they were there. And the place was transformed on this holiday because of them. We were dancing. They were picking me and my brother up, and all the other kids that would come. They would pick us up on our shoulders, and they would dance with us. And the place was rocking. I remember my grandmother, Allah Shalom, and all the women would literally be standing on top of tables to look over the mechitza. The mechitza was like 82 feet high. Like the men wanted to make sure the women couldn't get in. And they would literally stand on top of tables to look over to watch
Chaim and
the
Yitzchak,
dancing.
you're being recorded right now. We're recording a
We're doing a
podcast.
walking
You can
for
talk.
Farbrengen.
You can talk.
Come
Well,
with
you're
us.
going to be recorded.
Walking for
There's
Farbrengen.
a half a plane by Domo if you guys want to check it out.
Wait, it's a Farbrengen.
Half a what?
A half a plane.
Was it a plane crash?
No, it's just a half plane.
Okay, listen.
So-
we're walking around the park. We're going to the park. Okay.
So
We found a couple of youths here who were straggling around in the park. Hopefully, only up to good things. Of course.
Always.
Okay.
Helping out a friend's
Yeah.
business,
Always
buying gumballs
good.
from his machine,
Okay. Very good. Okay. So Avi's
So-
telling us a story about the dreary shul in Brighton Beach, full of Holocaust survivors. It was just kind of like a slow, sad, maybe gloomy place to be. And once a year, it would magically burst into full color with the appearance of these mysterious young men. You didn't even know how they got there, why they were
I
there.
had no clue.
And they would come in, and to the extent you said your grandmother would climb up on
Not
the
just
tables.
my grandmother. All the women were
All the old
standing on
ladies.
tables to be able to see over the mechitza and watch us dance. And you could see on their faces the smiles and the joy, and you can see that the mispalalim, the Holocaust survivors, that typically when we would go there, they looked sad and it was not a pleasant place to be. Everybody was smiling, everybody was beaming, the energy was totally different, and it was literally a place that was booming with joy and dancing and singing and love. And the place, a kind of a place where we didn't want to leave. My brother and I, we were little boys. We didn't want to leave.
It's amazing.
Amazing. And later,
Yeah, when did you put two and two together?
so later on, much later.
By the way,
in
Chaim
life-
Yitzchak, you're not stuck with us, but you're invited to join us. We're going to walk around the park. And
This is a good story.
okay, fine. All right.
So much later on in life, when I started to become more religious, and we're talking like,
We're going to walk the whole perimeter of the park. Let's
Whatever.
not cut through it. Let's
whatever.
try to-
We can stay on the sidewalk.
Listen,
you know.
I
That's
don't
the
know.
easiest way, is on the sidewalk. to
Oh,
walk
stay on the
around.
sidewalk around
Yeah.
it. Okay. We're at Cedarhurst
So-
Park right now.
Right. So I stopped going to Brooklyn for Simchas Torah, let's say in the late 80s. And I started to become religious, let's say in 99, 2000. And my religious journey very quickly led me to Lubavitch. And at a certain point early on, I found out that the Rebbe used to send Bachrim on Talucha to go walk literally
You even
anywhere.
used the insider term, by the way.
Right.
That's pretty
Right,
good.
Right. Listen, I've
Talucha, wow.
been around for a while now. So I found out that the Rebbe used to send Bachrim out to walk all over New York to go to shuls, so that he could connect with every single Jew. The halacha in Judaism is that a shliach, that an agent of a principal, literally has the significance or the standing of the principal himself. So by sending an agent out, according to Jewish law, it's as if the Rebbe himself was going and dancing with each one of these people and connecting with each one
Like
of
when
these
I bought
people.
my house and I gave you power of attorney, you were sending emails on my behalf.
Yeah, right, sort of.
It was
right.
like it was me.
Right, sort of, right.
Right.
So I found that out, and that was very touching to me, that the Rebbe wanted to do that, and he wanted to connect with every person, and he wanted to connect with me. But then I found out something else, that the Rebbe wouldn't start his own hakafas until all of those people came back. And that blew me away. That really, really impacted me, because I it's one thing to tell somebody else, go out and go walk 10, 20 miles and do shkoyach. It's a very different thing to be already not a young person and to have to wait until who knows what time, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, for all those people to get back, and only then to start your own hakafas. So then it's not just that you're sending somebody out to do the dirty work while you're sitting comfortably and living your life. You're literally knee deep in it with them. And it made me feel very connected to the Rebbe. I never had the chance to meet the Rebbe physically, but that blew me away. And that to me was like, this is a person who did everything that he could to really connect with every single Jew out there, and didn't leave anything on the table and put it all out there. And that to me was very, very, very special.
Have you ever gone on talucha yourself now?
Have I? No, I have not. I walked when I was younger. There was a bunch of us that used to go on Gimel Tammuz that used to walk from the 5 towns to the Ohel. And back in the day when I was a little bit younger, I used to join them.
Now you're in such good shape, you could probably go again.
Right. Now I could probably do it easier. Yetz Hashem. That's the next hachlach.
Talucha was the first place. Someone interviewed me. Can we cut through? Where we should go? Here?
Whatever you can, here or there. Whatever.
Is there a sidewalk coming up?
Whatever you want. You want to cut through?
Yeah, let's cut through here.
Yeah.
Somebody interviewed me recently and asked me, how did I start public speaking? And I said, talucha. My first time speaking publicly was actually talucha.
Yeah.
And what was interesting is I was not supposed to be the speaker.
Right.
I was a bacher.
Yeah.
And I don't know, 23, 24 years old. And I went with a group. And I was not going to be the speaker. Nobody thought of me as the guy who should speak. So, but I went with, because you go in a group.
Right.
But it wasn't Simchas Torah. It was Achin Shal Pesach.
Right.
Or was it Shvi Shal Pesach?
Right.
Shvi Shal Pesach. So, we went, and it was really long. The guy who I was following, he didn't represent it properly to me.
Right.
And it ended up being much farther than I really understood, and it was pretty exhausting. We went to somewhere in Bensonhurst.
Yeah, that's where my office is now. We Farbrengen there. You remember?
Was that Bensonhurst? I thought that was Flatbush.
No. It's right outside.
Was that your office?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So maybe it wasn't so far from there. So I walked from Crown Heights to Bensonhurst. Does it make sense that would be like 6-7 miles?
Yeah, easy. Probably more.
Easy. More. Okay. So, because I remember after this whole story happened, I went with a car, and it seemed to see how far it really was. And as I remember, it was 8 miles.
Yeah, easy.
Okay. So 8 miles was a lot longer than I was used to walking. By the time I got there, I was totally like...
gassed.
Yeah, exactly. So we get there, and the shul is a bunch of old Russian guys.
Yeah.
And the rabbi there says to us, you're going to speak here. You guys speak Russian, right? And the guy who was prepared to speak is like, no, I don't speak Russian. I speak English. They didn't tell you. The guy's like, they didn't tell you. So he's like, well, these guys speak Yiddish. You could do Yiddish. So my friend who was supposed to speak is like, I don't know. I mean, I could learn Likutei Sichos, but I can't give a speech in Yiddish. I can read it and I can understand it. I can't give a speech in Yiddish. So I'm like, I say to my friend, you want me to try it? He's like, okay, I guess we have no choice. So I got up there and whatever. I remember the Sikha actually. It was about Kriyas Yam Suf, about the splitting of the sea, and why Hashem specifically chose that miracle when, first of all, why a miracle at all, and then why that specific miracle to save the Jews.
Right.
And then whatever, there's a whole explanation of the symbolism of it. It's more than symbolism. That what that event manifested in the world made it possible for basically for the Torah to be given 6 weeks later.
Right.
Because Yetzias Mitzrayim, they left Egypt on Pesach, obviously. 7th day of Pesach is 1 week later. 6 more weeks after that, meaning 7 weeks from the time they left, that's Shavuos, that's Matan Torah. Anyway, so that was the thing that I said. I said it in Yiddish. It was my first time speaking publicly. That was it.
Beautiful.
So then we walked back, and I was hallucinating.
I can imagine.
yeah.
It's a long walk.
And I remember at one point, does it make sense we walked through Borough Park at one point, or
Yeah,
maybe?
sure. Bensonhurst is right. It's right in between Borough Park and Flatbush.
Okay, so I remember we got to like Borough Park, and I was telling my friend, I'm done. I'm completely and I was hallucinating. I couldn't feel my body. And it sounds ridiculous, because it's only 16 miles total.
That's
I
a
know,
lot.
but for me, I'm not trained.
For
And
anybody, that's
Right.
a huge amount.
and even though I was a young guy, I was like 23, but I was beyond.
Sure.
And I was having like an out-of-body experience.
Sure.
And I got my friend. Then he parted ways with me. I think on Empire Boulevard. He's like, "Okay, see you later. Get home safe." And I just kept walking. And at that point, I was delirious. I was literally delirious. So I was supposed to go to one house, place where I was supposed to be their guest, and it was the night now of Achron Shel Pesach. We'd left on the day of Shvi Shel Pesach, and now it was like the night of Achron Shel Pesach, and I was so delirious, I walked into the wrong house.
Opa.
It was on Crown Street, and I remember whose house I walked in. It was Backman, and I walked in, and they weren't expecting me, but I guess I looked so bad that they weren't gonna ask me any questions. They just told me to sit down, and they brought me water.
Right.
And I remember I wouldn't drink it because I hadn't made Kiddush yet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was like, no, I haven't made Kiddush. I can't. And so they didn't even say to me, what are you doing? Why'd you walk into here? I guess I looked so unhealthy, so unwell that all they were trying to do was stabilize me.
Right.
So I sat there for a while until finally I started talking. Shavuot Tov. And finally I explained, I just came back from Talucha, and they started to piece things together. And then finally they said, oh, where are you trying to go? So I told them where I was going. Oh, that's our neighbor. I said, oh, I got to go there. They're like, no. Tashgacha Pratis, divine providence. You came to us. We're going to go next door. We're going to tell him that you're staying with us. And that's what I did. So I stayed with them and made Kiddush, and I slowly came back to normal.
Right.
Yeah. So
I think the delirious state maybe was normal. I think pushing the boundaries is part of what we're supposed to do. And unfortunately, we get used to not doing it, and we think that the status quo is where we're supposed to be, and pushing the boundaries is not. And I think maybe, and it's just me. I don't know if I'm right. Maybe I'm totally wrong. But I think maybe the whole concept of talucha and shlichus and all the things that
just
the Rebbe
push you
pushed us
beyond
to do,
what you think you're
Yetzias
capable of.
Mitzrayim is go
Ooh.
outside your boundaries. Go push yourself. Go. That's
Wow.
normal. And,
Wow.
and that's for me, that's to bring it back to what we're doing. That's part of what physical exercise is. It's not a contradiction with ruchnius. It's all one thing.
It's all one thing.
Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. There's no difference. It's all one thing. You want to be healthy spiritually, you need to have a healthy body. We need to push ourselves beyond our boundaries. We need to recognize that we're all one, that I'm not me and you're not you, we're us.
Oh, wow.
That's the whole
The oneness.
thing. Oneness. That's the whole thing.
Yeah. This is very deep. This is.
Yeah, listen, everything.
Yeah. if you keep
Everything
looking,
is- yeah.
everything's deep. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. This maybe is morbid, and you're saying something so inspiring, and this is maybe morbid, but I'll tell you a defense or a proof of what you're saying.
Nope.
But it's very morbid, maybe, and then I'll tell it, and then we'll make it sunshiny and happy again.
Yeah.
Okay, I heard about this terrible experiment that was done about drowning rats.
Oy.
And basically, how long would they fight to keep up to tread water basically,
Right.
until they would just get exhausted and collapse into the water and drown and die.
Oh, yeah.
So it was something like 2 hours.
Wow.
Okay, yeah. Then what they did is, after they established that baseline, they would save some rats just before the 2 hour mark.
Right.
Okay, and then they would give them rest, and I guess the next day or a few days later,
again.
they would do it again to them. But the only difference was these rats had been saved
Right.
just before the brink of exhaustion,
Right.
and they wanted to see what the experience of
do to
having
the next
gone
one.
to that brink
Right.
before the brink, what that obviously if you push them past the brink, you can't test on them anymore because they're not alive.
Right.
But to find out what would it do to these rats having been that close to the breaking point, the established breaking point, and having been rescued and then put back in that situation. And what they found is, this is insane.
Yeah.
These rats would continue treading water for close to 100 hours,
Wow.
for days,
Wow.
because they'd had the experience. That's very morbid, because then how did they find out the maximum time is they let them drown,
Right.
which is terrible. But
Right.
so it's very morbid. But you
Right.
see the difference between somebody who believes there's a point beyond the breaking point
Right.
is not just twice as much or even 10 times as much. It's exponentially more than what you thought was the maximum that you could handle.
Right.
Anyways,
Right.
it's kind of morbid, but
It reminds me of a story, and I'm going to mess it up, and maybe you'll correct the details from the Frierdiker Rebbe when one time he was arrested by the Russians, and he was beaten by the Russian police, and one of the police officers was a Jew whose father was, I believe, a chassid or close to the Rebbe, and the Russians wanted him to basically just relent, and he refused. And this Jewish guy came to the Frierdiker Rebbe and said, "Why don't you just say what they want you to say, and they'll stop beating you? Like, well, what are you doing?" And his response was, "I'm not afraid of them because I believe in one God in two worlds," meaning I believe that there's hope at the end of the day, and whatever they do to me over here doesn't make a difference. And therefore he was able to keep fighting and to keep persevering and to keep trying and not give up.
you said the punchline.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I
Correct.
told you in
Yeah.
the beginning I'm going to mess it up.
Right.
I'm not going to deliver
Right.
it right.
But actually this story, I'll correct you, but really
Please.
the story that you're saying now is ridiculously relevant to the point you were making earlier about Hashem Echad, that spirituality and materiality are one thing.
Tell me, please.
Okay, so first let's correct the details of the story.
Yeah.
They were torturing him. A lot of it was psychological torture. And they pulled out a gun on him. And they
Right.
said, this little toy has a way of making people talk. So the Frierdiker Rebbe said, we're talking about the sixth Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rav Yosef Yitzchak, Zecher Tzadik V'Kodesh Levracha. And he says, he retorted, this little toy is known to be effective on those who have one world and many gods.
Right.
But I have one God and two
two
worlds.
worlds, right.
Okay, so let me tell you, I always took that to mean that whatever you do to me, okay, you'll kill me in this world, I'll go to my next world. But then, as I got older, I started thinking, I don't think that's what it means. I don't think it's talking about what's going to happen next. It's talking about even at this moment. And then finally, I found a sikha where the Rebbe said that. The Rebbe
Right.
said, when the Frierdiker Rebbe said, I have two worlds, he didn't mean just after, if you kill me in this world, I'll go to another world.
Right.
Okay, he said, I have two worlds even now, at this very moment. Meaning to say that although the situation, from a materialistic standpoint, if you just take a snapshot of it, it looks like you have the upper hand, I'm your prisoner, you're my captor. But that's not the whole story. There are two realities going on even right now.
Right.
There's a spiritual reality right now. And in the spiritual reality, I am not your captive.
Right.
So, there's the material reality, which is an important part of reality. If you don't do the mitzvahs, you just think about them and you meditate on them, you don't actually do them physically, you haven't done them.
Right.
So material is very important. At the same time, not just a material reality, it's a spiritual reality at the very same time. And when you look at your life and you make certain assumptions about what things are and how they're going and who's in control, but you're only looking at a natural, material point of view, you're not getting the whole picture. There's also that spiritual factor as well. They're really coinciding, happening at the same time.
Yeah.
We're back to the point where we started from.
Oh, Hashem.
And I'm looking in to map my run, and I'm going to pause it here. Okay. It says 1.12 miles.
Awesome.
1.12 miles.
A great beginning.
Seriously,
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
This is
Avi.
Awesome, and I hope that we'll continue.
I broke
to
a
do
little
it.
sweat.
Good.
I mean, I am wearing a Zaydna kapota, so.
That's right, and little tzitzis and all of that stuff. But Baruch Hashem, I hope we'll continue.
Shukayach.
Yeah, be in
This is a
touch,
blast.
please. Yeah. Be in
Okay,
touch.
we'll keep doing it.
Thank you.
Okay, be well.